Hi, the name of this video is gonna be Bible Bible Archeology Part 2, which I did a Part 1, I think a few days back or perhaps a week ago. And ran into another video on YouTube and wanted to do another session based off of that. And um, so if you look at YouTube, there's a ton of video, hundreds, if not thousands, of videos. People talking about Planet X, Planet Nibiru. They're talking about giants, fallen angels, um, um, the ancient Sumerians, and all those things. The Anunnaki. Um, the UFOs, all that stuff. And you know, while those people have some level of truth, but most of the information that they have is kind of twisted or half information, half truths, and a lot of it is based off of either evolution or just sci-fi um, or based off of other writings coming out of the Middle East. Some of it, to disprove the Bible. But but yeah, I don't normally don't dabble into that stuff, but I just happened to, this video kind of popped up on my list, and I happened to click on it. It's about an hour long, 45 minutes maybe. It's called Human Origins dash Nubaru, comma the Anunnaki and Sumerians, and then in parentheses it has AR series at the end. And it was more of a lecture type format, so it wasn't your normal video that you see with that, and you got crazy music and different things. But this was more of an archaeology approach at you know given the history on this stuff, right? And so, which it was pretty good, and basically, all it proves at the end of the day, even though I'll say that the commentator or the facilitator, he's got a little bit slightly twisted view of the Bible. He's got a kind of twisted view of a lot of things, but he was able to point by point go through a lot of things that line up in these ancient writings of the Sumerians, that line up with the Bible, and in part because he knows, or whoever put the lecture together for him, they know a little bit of Hebrew, so he was able to kind of look at the Bible, from a Hebrew writing perspective, line it up with this language, um, that the ancient Sumerians or the people in Mesopotamia used, and kind of point by point go down and prove through those writings coming out of Mesopotamia, and what's really documented history, that it lines up pretty well with the Bible. And so from that standpoint, it's a good document to look at. Now, where his view is slanted is, he's differentiating Um, he didn't draw the connection between 100%, maybe a slightly between a couple of things. So it was just to go through a few things in the video. So in the video, it talks about later in the video, it talks about chariots or UFOs, right? And the fact that these things are drawn on the walls there and the writings of the, ancient, Sumerians or whatever, there's drawings and writings mentioning these crafts, right? These crafts and which that lines up with the Bible because the Bible talks about the chariots of Israel, which I think um, Elijah's son, Elisha, which Elisha termed it as. They're also called clouds. They're described in many fashions, but it's basically vehicles that angels basically use to travel around the earth, in the earth, under the water. And so, so he touched on that, but he's already talking about the history documented in the writings, and the history is consistent. It talks about the flood. Okay, so that piece is consistent. It talks about again what this planet Nibiru that supposedly comes around in an orbit with the Earth about every 3,600 years. Now, which a lot of people you see have been talking about Planet Nibiru coming, and it's time for Planet Nibiru to surface, this, that, and the other. So, in part, when you drill down on that, okay, what happened 3,600 years ago? 3,600 years ago was the Exodus, okay? And so that timing lines up, with the Exodus, all right? Then you go 3,600 years before that, you got, the flood, right? So, it very well could be that, again, perhaps, the large chariots, or there could very well be a planet, that, um, that has uh, angels or whatever on it, who knows, or more than likely large chariot that basically has come around in those time periods. But anyway, don't want to get too much into the chariot piece or UFO piece, but the big thing that was consistent with the Bible is it talks about how early on that basically there were gods on earth. Okay, and basically everybody on earth worked for these gods and reported to these gods. Okay, again, this is in those writings, and that at some point in time, those gods started mixing with basically the people who were under them, serving them, and intermarrying with them and having offspring. Okay, that's mentioned in the Bible, um, and I'll just go through all the scriptures at the end, and it talks about basically, you know, these gods, being maybe, I think he mentioned 10 to 12 feet tall. And again, the Bible talks about, men's or beings of higher stature. And it talks about the fact that these gods that were on the earth basically created man. Okay. And if you read, Genesis, in the it says that um, God created the heavens and earth, and he goes into the Hebrew, which where it says God's created the heavens and the earth, and of course all the people. It goes into the word for gods there is Elohim, which is plural, which means powers, aka gods, angels, judges. Um, so again, it's just further confirmation that the Bible is truth, and it's further confirmation of that. And so going to go through a few scriptures here. Okay, going to go to the book of Jude. Okay, Jude. Jude chapter 1 verse 6, and the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day. Okay. And what that is talking about, that's basically talking about these gods that were on the earth. And again, those would be the Israelites, um, again, the first fruit that were angels that were put on earth to rule over earth, and who basically fell, which they're also called Nephilim in other chapters, basically fallen. So how did they fall? They basically, as laid out in the book of Genesis, they started, the female Eve listened to the serpent, who was basically one of these basically beings that they're there to rule over, and through her she caused Adam and the other gods to fall, basically get kicked out of the garden, and basically their lifespan started to diminish. They were initially set to be to live forever. They started living 1,000 years, and then it's just started trickling down 600, 200, down to basically 180. 120 years. Average lifespan now is what, probably 70 years or something. So now again, that's not all people. This is talking specifically about the first fruit, the same people who will be the elect. Again, talking through, from a standpoint of reincarnation. And just, had a few other scriptures I was going to cover. So from a standpoint of, confirming that, these people were gods, let's see, we're going to go to Psalms chapter 86 and verse 8. Let's see. Psalms 86, 8. I think I wrote the wrong scripture down. Let's see. It's around here somewhere. Okay, excuse me. 82 and 6. I really butchered that. All right, so I have said ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. but ye shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. Okay? So basically said you're gods, the sons of the Most High, but you're going to die like men. Again, as they start intermixing and, from a spiritual standpoint, becoming weaker because they're, um, taking on the sins of the other nations. Okay, so from there we're going to go to Genesis. And let's see, Genesis chapter 6. Chapter 6 and verse 4. Okay. And just to prove that, no, let's start at verse 3. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. Okay, that's when basically the Most High took down man's life expectancy. And then verse 4, there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, they bare children to them. The same begat mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. Okay, so again, it talks about the sons of God. Again, talking about, the princes, basically. And these people were gods on earth because they're the sons of God, so they're gods on earth. And they will be, again, once the kingdom is set up. But they'll be wiser and better than they were previously. Okay, so we're going to go to one more chapter. So now that was before the flood, where they're officially called the sons of God and gods, right? And after the flood, they weren't really called that until God changed the Most High God changed Jacob's name to Israel. Okay, so Genesis 32, verse 8. Verse 8. Okay, and I wrote another one down wrong. Let's see. Okay, excuse me. Genesis 32 and 28. Okay. And he said, thy name shall be no more Jacob, but Israel, for as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and has prevailed. Okay, so that's where the Israel, or Yasharallah, which stands for a prince of the power. Prince meaning, son of the king, which again, the sons of God mention pre-flood. And so that's what they're meant to be, but basically everything is getting set up for the kingdom. So right now, going through punishment and punishment and learning, like a extended tutorial on how to how to rule over this earth in righteousness instead of wickedness. So there's other points to the movie, but just wanted to touch on, not movie, to the video, but just wanted to touch on those few things. There's also, just to confirm, the year God's peace, Yahweh Shai, which most people call Jesus. He mentions in the New Testament. I didn't write that scripture down, but he says, uh, let's see. He says either "Isn't it written?" or "It is written," or "I've said that ye are gods." So again, he reconfirming that they're gods, and so this history that this guy brought out, it's pretty much Bible history. Now again, he at the end he tried to say, well, the Hebrew Bible was taken from this history, you know, and repackaged in the Bible, right? But really, it's the opposite. Um, you know, there might maybe some separate documentation of these events, but it wasn't a case where he tried to say that during the Syrian captivity that um, the Israelites went over there and they got all this, wrote it down, and came back and packaged it up in scriptures and a Bible. But again, the guy, he errs not knowing the scriptures. So Syrian captivity happened what, 600 BC? Okay, well, um, there's archaeology that documents all the stuff that happened with Moses, and there's documents that document the Israelites and their belief in God and all this stuff well before 600 BC. So so this guy again, there's always an attempt to disprove in some way the Bible. So, but the Bible stands, and this video where he brought out some good archaeology, it does nothing but reaffirm what is actually in the Bible. So anyway, leave comments as as I always say. Um, Thank you to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai for opportunity to do this video, and shalom to all the brothers out there doing the work. We should be getting closer again to getting out of here.